What up, guys? Welcome to the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Today we have a guest with us. Today we have Chris Wojcik. I might be saying that incorrectly. I think that's how I've heard it said when I watched some of his matches. But sometimes the Eastern European names, we Americans, we struggle with it. We look at the end of it and we're like, huh? Like, usually yours is like TZ. TS, sorry. But Sozik.
Sozik.
But it's like you for an American, you're like TS. Like, what? What do you do with that? We don't really we don't know what to make of it.
A lot of Japanese names TS, I feel like.
Okay.
They start with
yeah. Okay.
I've seen some of that too, which is kind of,
but I know of no traditional like Anglo-Saxon type names that come from that,
Well, you had I gave you the green light. I said Wojcik. I think it's Wojcik, I'm pretty sure. So we'll see.
But anyway, looking forward to this one. Up and coming young competitor. I think he's been in it for a little over, I think close to 10 years is what I read on his website. He's got a website called The Grappler's Diary. I think it's on Substack, whatever. You can check that out. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit. And on the podcast, stay with him. We'll definitely talk a little bit about his backstory. But he writes. He's got a grappler diary, and so he's writing on a regular basis. As someone who writes on a regular basis, sometimes it's fun to talk about that stuff, opposed to going through the podcast and doing your normal, hey, here's how I got started, like the normal song and dance, which is what most of the time we end up doing when you go on a podcast, which nothing wrong with it. We do it all the time. But I figured since the dude has like a ton of stuff out there that to me gets past the superficial stuff that you would have in a podcast, like it's some fun stuff. So I think I'm going to obviously we'll talk a little bit about his story, and then we'll get into some of his thoughts, like some of the ones, and I some of these I like sort of relate with, like like the ego existing on the mats, like the fact that we say you get rid of your ego, but yet everybody has an ego. You can't get rid of it. There's no getting rid of it. You're not Buddha. Talking about avoiding injuries, and again, he's a young guy who's in a competitive environment, trying to compete at the highest level. How are you mitigating those? Even if you're not the highest level competitor, you can still learn from that. Some of the sacrifices it's made, but then also too, some of the other stuff like the books he's reading, his writing practice, because again, as a writer, I'm always interested in talking to people that are doing similar stuff, and some other things. And so again, hopefully you guys enjoy this podcast, get something from it. As always, thanks to our sponsors for helping make this podcast happen. Athletic, check it here. If you're looking at the video, the Athletic CBD and THC mints, ATHLE THC mints. If you get the sampler pack like this, it comes in this like cool little, we probably don't have in there. You can probably suck them down.
We use them.
But assuming there would be these 3 little packets of mints here, and there's 3 different ones. We have the power, flow, and the rebound. And again, these are THC, CBD variations, and then there's CBG, and then CBC and THCV with all these different cannabinoids. So it sounds like a bunch of acronyms, or you don't need to know that. Basically, it's a bunch of different cannabinoids, and the idea is that different cannabinoids have different effects on you, right? So you can obviously think, oh, THC, if you take a lot of that, it can make you loopy. There's not enough in this stuff to do that. But there's other things like CBD, which we've talked about plenty of times on the podcast. There's things like CBN, which these products don't have, but CBN products, which are really helpful for sleep. A lot of cool different things. So again, they combine a dosing of it that's very low dose as far as the THC goes. So you're not going to be, going to kooky land and passing out in the middle of the day, like that time that you ate too much special brownies. For anybody that's ever had that happen to you, that's not necessarily always the most fun thing. But they're nice mints for things like, as the thing implies, do you want to get into a flow state? Do you want to relax a little bit with the rebound? Do you want to get in and try to train harder and have something to assist that? And they have different blends to try to assist that. And again, they have a low dose. I think it's like 2 milligrams of THC. So you'll feel something, but you're not going to be loopy or anything of that nature. So if you guys want to check them out, it's a newer product. It was developed by Jiu-Jitsu black belts, guys who are training like us that are a little bit older. And again, just seeing what they can do to optimize and maximize what they can do with their body and their abilities. So if you guys want to check them out, go to athletic.com, ATHLETHC.com. The promo code is Chewjitsu10. So again, it gets my little Chewjitsu stamp of approval if you want to check it out. Also, thanks to our buddies over at Epic Roll. Epic Roll is one of my favorite jiu-jitsu brand companies out there. They make terrific gear, great looking stuff, good quality stuff. I get my gis and rash guards currently made through them for the gym and for my own orders. So any of you guys who, you got my recent batch of jiu-jitsu rash guards, it was the Epic Roll stuff. I like the quality of it. I like the fit of it. I get sent stuff a lot, and I tend to fall back. It's like, it's not as comfortable. It doesn't fit me as well. I just like their stuff. And so again, I'm a big fan of what they do. They also support a lot of up and coming grapplers as well. A lot of the different events like PGF, they're out there supporting it. So again, it's a jiu-jitsu brand company that supports jiu-jitsu, opposed to what sometimes you'll see. And maybe you guys don't know this, but sometimes you'll get this thing where people will, make jiu-jitsu gear and they have no interest in actual jiu-jitsu. They're just trying to make money off of us. Happens all the time. So these are people that are in our culture, that are training, that are rolling, that are doing the damn thing, and they make terrific gear. If you want to check them out, go to epicrollbjj.com. The promo code is Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order on whatever you buy. Also, one of our longtime sponsors, Charlotte's Web, they make CBD products as well as functional mushroom products, among other things. They have everything from tinctures, gummies, balms. I mean, it's a mixture of stuff, right? So they've been around for a long time. Again, if you guys don't know this, they're one of the OGs in the CBD space. So, the CBD space is still unregulated. So, a lot of times people feel a certain way about, the regulation process with the FDA and everything else, but there's good and bads to it, right? But the process that they go through is far more stringent and strict than what is required by them, because they're kind of waiting for that to happen. Also, if you know their story, they originally began as a company, as the story goes, to support a young girl who was having issues with seizures. And so her name was Charlotte, and they were supporting her with the CBD oils that they were making. There was a very specific one that they were using for them to try to assist her. And then it kind of branched off from that, right? Because at the time, nobody was doing it. They started doing it, and then it grew from that. And kind of the question, I remember when we went out there a few years back to actually see one of their farms, talking to them, the question that kind of resounds through all their decisions is, would this be good for Charlotte? Right. So would this be good for them? And I think that's a cool thing, because sometimes you go behind the veil and you hear people and you hear them talk when the cameras aren't on, when people aren't listening, and it becomes kind of a, like, what can we get out of people sort of thing, versus how can we serve the market that we're with, right? That kind of thing. I think that's the right way to say it. I was actually talking to a guy about a business thing, and he's talking to me, and he's like, hey man, can you give me some advice on XYZ? And I was like, sure. I was like, and he's telling me about his little plan. And I asked him, I said, well, why should anyone care? Why should anybody do this? Why should they buy from you? Why should they take part in what you're doing? Because a lot of times people just, they're not really thinking about the other end of people. They're thinking, well, I want to build this thing and I want to do this thing and me, versus I want them to get this result. So I think it's powerful. So again, it's a cool company. They make some terrific products. If you want to check out their website, go to charlottesweb.com, look around, see if you find something you'd like. Again, I really like their CBN product, which is Stay Asleep, which again is to help with sleep, which is great for recovery, but they've got a lot of different products. I've used CBD off and on for the last 8 years-ish. And I'm a fan of it. I think it's a good product. I think it's helpful for recovery and for the things that we do with training. So if you want to check it out, go to charlottesweb.com. The promo code is Chewjitsu30 for 30% off the order. And guys, if you want to support the podcast directly, you can roll on over to the website at patreon.com/the Chewjitsu podcast. When you join up, you'll obviously be supporting the podcast with a nominal membership fee, if you wish, right? Very, very inexpensive. But if you got commitment issues, don't worry about it. But again, after you do that, you'll get access to the different perks that we offer. One of the perks, obviously, is a series of contents that we've created. So in particular, we have obviously podcast extras with the guests, with us, everything else, but we also have some specific seminars recorded, and we also have some warm-up and stretching routines specifically for jiu-jitsu practitioners. So if you're someone that's like, man, I feel tight, I feel stiff, gosh, I wish someone would tell me what to do if I was a jiu-jitsu I hear this all the time, right? Like people say this, so, I wish someone would help me. We've got it. It's there for you. You could sign up, get the membership, and just quit, and you would have the video there and you could reuse it. It's 20 minutes-ish. And it'll target things like your hips and your shoulders, the things that are really, they get really tight with us in jiu-jitsu and that tend to hold people back. I got a message from a guy the other day by the other day, I mean yesterday, saying like, man, like, could you show me something about hips? It seems like, I'm getting into jiu-jitsu and hips seem to be one of the most important parts about the body. And my hips are so stiff and rigid because I've sat down at work all day, all my life. Right. I know you can fix it. My hip mobility is actually better now at like 40 than it was when I was 30 because of constantly working at it. Now it's not great. I mean, I'm not like some super ultra flexible guy, but my guard retention is better because I can bring my knee to my chest and stuff. So again, it's specifically for jiu-jitsu, and you get that along with everything else that's in the memberships and the perks. If you guys want to check it out, go to the patreon.com and then / the Jiu-Jitsu podcast to check it out. Also, guys, if you want to get my daily email where I send out a written message to you each week, or actually each day, Monday through Friday, sometimes on the weekends, go to my website at jiu-jitsu.net/join. When you join up, you'll get the daily email, which goes into everything from jiu-jitsu, training, diet, lifting, everything else in between. And then I also will send you a free ebook along with some other resources, but a free ebook in particular that goes through some different strategies on getting more from your open rolling so you can get more value, more deliberate training, more focus so you improve faster, more motivation because you actually have a goal. And then there's a video that comes along with it. So if you don't like to read, you can just listen to it, or you can actually watch the video. And I give some additional examples, but you'll get around 12 different strategies for how to do that and get more focus. And again, that's available to you for free at my website at jiu-jitsu.net/join. Your name, you said it's basically the like Smith in Poland.
Yeah, it's like one of the most common Polish last names. So super common. But I'm like, I'm like American. I was born in England, but like both my parents are American. So I don't speak Polish. I am like third, fourth generation,
Okay, so
I
your parents
have a Polish last name.
Your parents were already born, or your dad or mom were born,
and my grandparents were born here. So
wow.
How did you end up being born in London?
My dad just had a job there at the time, and it did not matter until I wanted to do the European trials, and I could because I had an English passport.
You're like, sweet, yeah, throw me in there.
Yeah, so that was the only time I ever really cared that I had an English passport. I had an English passport when I was a baby, and then I got it updated when I was like 23 to do the European trials. And that was
heck yeah, that's awesome.
It's funny, man. So with your with all the stuff going, I wanted to ask you. This is completely doesn't not matter, but since it's still fresh, and you don't have to answer it, we can completely cut this out. But it's kind of buzzing around right now in the jiu-jitsu world. What do you think about the Moneyberg black belt thing? Do you have an opinion on it one way or the other?
I wrote an article about the not the Moneyberg thing, but like the rise of like the celebrityism in
celebrity belts
that we have now. And like kind of how it's like, does it detract from, because I think like for a long time we always cared about how like jiu-jitsu was always like, it's like, if you're going to get your black belt in jiu-jitsu, it's going to take 10 years and it's going to be super hard and you're going to have to get beat up. And I think that this, like, now we're kind of reaching a point where like I think that becoming a black belt in jiu-jitsu is not as hard as it probably was like 10, 15 years ago. But maybe, I'm dating myself, like 15, 20 years ago, really. But at the same time, like the best black belts today are better than ever. And I think that the worst black belts today are probably worse than ever. So we're kind of like seeing the culture expand a little bit. So like, I've never trained with Derek. I've never met Derek. I've never talked to Derek. So I can't tell you how he he truly is at jiu-jitsu. And I don't want to like detract from anybody's black belt, but it does seem like a little bit, it is a red flag. I think that's what I'll say about that.
I talked about it in the video. It's like, for me, it's almost like a lot of these celebrities, and again, they could be really good, but if you're one of those people that's in the sort of the public eye, who like, especially someone like that, where you're flaunting everything else. If you were this like badass dude, why wouldn't you show that off too? Right. But my thing is, I think a lot of times, like the celebrity belts, it's almost like you're like, the people get like an honorary degree, here's you're not a real PhD or whatever, but hey, we'll give you this honorary degree because of something other, like I feel like it's like that. It's like you paid some money. We appreciate you. Here you go. Thanks for, paying my mortgage for a couple of years or something. I don't know. But
and
yeah, I don't know
too is I think he's doing something good for the sport as a whole, because he's like got this huge following online. I think he's got a big YouTube as well, and he's got I know he's got 4 million followers on Instagram. So for him to post about all these jiu-jitsu athletes and get more eyes on the sport potentially is
because some of them might be paid, right? I'm always
I think they're all paid, but I think
I'm always skeptical about the followers. It's you'll have a bazillion followers. How many of those are real versus? But yeah, he's definitely got a large following to some degree.
Yeah. So say half of it is, say he has 4 million followers, and say half are bought. It's that's 2 million followers, which is more than Flo, more than Gordon, which is a lot of eyes on jiu-jitsu. Which maybe they're not all the best eyes, but we're still, I think sometimes it's good to remember how niche our sport is, and how it is good to just have more people become interested in it and want to try jiu-jitsu. And unfortunately, those people might go try jiu-jitsu and realize they're probably not going to get a black belt in 3.5 years from their local academy. But, at the same time, it's maybe we can get some people to fall in love with jiu-jitsu from this. Just I try to be an optimist about this stuff because the alternative is unpleasant, but
I'm just having fun with this thing. The one kind of going back to one of the points you made about the wider spread, the wider disparity of black belts. It used to be, obviously, if you're a black belt, there was the quality of the black belt at the base level was probably higher because it was so harder to get. But now, like you said, the top end is so much better than it ever was. And maybe the bottom end's a little bit better, a little bit worse. It reminds me of one of my coaches. He was, he ended up, was an American guy that ended up marrying a Brazilian woman. So he was always down there. And he was telling us, when you go to an American gym, at least this is the time, this is circa 2006, whatever, where black belts in the Midwest and stuff were pretty rare. There were some, it was a big deal to have a black belt. Whereas he would go to Brazil and he said, yeah, there's lots of black belts. These, because it's been down there for a long time, and some of them are really good, really they're killers. And then some of them they would be struggling with our purple belts because they're just, they're showing up and they're training, but they're not it's not everybody's a killer. And so I think we're getting into that space where, maybe you had a guy who got his black belt and then he got a little bit older, or maybe you have a guy who's showing up consistently. He's been there for 15 years or something. And, he trains 3 days a week, whatever, so, we just understand there's a different level of black belt there. And you're starting to get that, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah. And I think it's also just it's impossible to demand that every black belt be able to hang with every other black belt, because the level at the high levels, it's becoming the differentiation is becoming more and more extreme, which is good for the growth of the professionalism of the sport. So I think that's really cool. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah. Chris, do you mind, recent, speaking of current events in the news, with B team, because you're still training out there, what's kind of come of that and how has that impacted, first of all, kind of what's going on there and where are you training? Are you still training there, and kind of how's that impacted? Because you're going to be in the CJI too, right?
Yeah. So I'll be in CJI 2 representing B team, and this will be the last tournament where we'll be B team as the team name. So essentially the main changes that you guys are going to see after CJI is just going to be the gym in Austin. I jokingly called it the gym formerly known as B team because it's it's the same gym in the same location. It looks exactly the same. We're just going to be rebranding. And so I don't know what the name is yet. I haven't been told, but not much is going to change for me. I'm still going to be teaching pretty much the same classes. I'm still going to be training the same. What will happen is there will be a new name. The ownership shifted around a little bit. So Craig and Seth, who are, they created Fair Fight Foundation and CJI, they're just going to be focusing on other things. I think Craig is talking about a retirement from competitive jiu-jitsu. So not owning a gym and being a part of the day-to-day. He hasn't really been for a while, but I think he just kind of is doing other things, and it just kind of made sense for a transfer of ownership. It's not there's not a ton of drama. It's just kind of a transfer of ownership. And changing the name is the big thing. And I think that kind of took a lot of people, like people were like, oh no, B team's over. Some people were like, oh, is our gym closed now? And it's like, you know, maybe the delivery could have been a little bit better. I'll say that, but I think that everything is fine, you know?
Yeah.
But that's how Craig does it. Like, it's big, it's kind of over the top. It kind of brings, and it
sometimes comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. It brings a lot of attention. But that's what gotten CJI so big. That's what's gotten all the excitement and just kind of where it is now. I think with Craig doing crazy stuff, you know, overseas and just doing all kinds of weird things to bring attention.
Yeah, he's living a different kind of life than most of us. So it's like, it's just it's cool to like that he's been able to accomplish so much on and off the mat though, and like you know, live this kind of adventure lifestyle. Maybe not for me, but I definitely appreciate what he's done for the sport and everything. And you know, it's been the gym. Like the B team name and the B team brand was like huge for me, like advancing my career, especially like the last 2 years, you know, like even though I wasn't like part of B team at the very beginning, I moved down here in 2023, like the last 2 years, just being with the gym in terms of skill and just in terms of like opportunities that I've been able to get just because I train with these guys has been huge. And so I'm like super grateful for that.
Yeah, what's that transition like going from, say, you know, like I'm sure you were you with Jeff back before? Okay, so you were Jeff, you know, who's good, you know, Jeff knows what he's doing, but then you go into a room full of just young killers, right? Because I feel like a lot of times gyms will have like a crop of people that are tough, whatever, but then you get a situation like B team where you're surrounded by several of the best guys, you know, or some of the better guys in their weight classes in the world. And then you're training with them consistently. And I don't know what the training's like, but you know, I feel like it's probably pretty tough rounds, you know, especially with that damn camera sitting around, everybody's trying to get a highlight reel throw or something. What was the adjustment of training like going there?
So there are definitely some growing pains. I think it's like I went from like having no camera during training, unless it was like, can I use my phone to film something for myself? Or like, you know, nobody really cared. Most of my training partners were hobbyists, to like all of my training partners are like jiu-jitsu athletes. And so it kind of was an adjustment period for sure. Like I remember I got used to like when I would train at home, I could take rounds off and kind of like still be okay. Whereas like in that room, especially when I first came down, if I decide that I'm going to take a round off and like train, but like not really give my all, or not really like fall asleep a little bit, next thing I know, I'm on the internet and I'm getting thrown around or something, which like, but then like within that, there's like, now I've like, there's so much footage of me getting thrown around and submitted in competition and training, whatever, that it's like, it doesn't really bother me anymore.
Yeah.
Like there's footage of me doing good in training. There's footage of me doing bad. So it's all good. You know, it's just part of the game, which was kind of like how I thought before, but like, it's different when you're actually in it every day and you're like, oh, I'm like, cause we're going to talk a little bit about like ego and stuff. And like, this is like kind of a good segue. Like I was like, oh, I don't have like a huge ego. And then I'd see like a video of me getting launched by Nicky Rod. And I'm like, wait, now I feel bad about myself. What is it? Do I suck at jiu-jitsu now? This, that, whatever. And it kind of like, now I'm like kind of more, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm more adjusted to like, I can handle this, like the attention a little bit better.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the thing about ego, like we were sort of talking about before the show started, in jiu-jitsu, you hear it all the time. It drives me bananas, but you'll hear people say, you know, oh man, you got to leave your ego at the door, which I understand what they're trying to get at, right? Because, you know, ego is just a collection of stories we tell ourselves, right? And some stories you need to leave outside of the gym because they're not going to be helpful here. Like you're really good at this thing and that's great. This means nothing here, you know? But how do you sort of balance that? Because to be a good competitor, at least in my estimation, right, you kind of have to, I don't want to say be full of yourself, but you've got to be confident in what you're able to do, right? Because if you step on the mat and you're just, oh gee golly, well, I hope I do all right today. I mean, like that's probably not going to bode well for you when you're face down with a guy who's, you know, chomping at the bit to tear you up. Whereas if you get on the mat and you're like, I know I can hit this, I know my game's good. If I go at this person, I play my game correctly, I can win this. That takes a little bit of belief in self. So how do you balance that ability to like have a strong, healthy ego, but not letting it get into sort of the realm of I shouldn't ever lose, or I don't like, or I feel bad about this, whatever, especially in the training room. Competition's a little different, but especially in the training room.
I think that the way that I approach training is I'm like, mostly when I'm training, I'm focusing on skill development. Even if I'm training for competition, I'm very rarely allowing my performance in training to impact the way that I feel about my jujitsu as a whole. So like, cause I know like we're all training hard. Some days you're going to have days where like I'll catch, Nicky Rod, or I'll like do something really good against like the top, like giant guys who are way bigger than me. And I'll be like, oh, wow. Now, does this mean I'm a world champion? I'm the best ever. I'm going to win CJI at plus 80 or whatever. I'm going to be the next whatever. And then I'll have some days where I'll like get tapped by a purple belt who nobody's ever heard of. And I think that like, if I allowed either of those results to determine the way that I feel about my jujitsu, I would be super miserable, because I would like just be like, it would be like super high, super low kind of, so instead I try to mitigate the graph a little bit. So like what I mean by that, maybe that's not the right way of saying it, but like I'll make those same highs and lows, but I just won't allow them to impact me so much that it carries over. So like I'll still, like if I do something good, I'll still allow myself to feel good. If I do bad, I will still allow myself to feel bad, but I try to I have a short memory. So like if something bad happens, I'm happy about it until it's time for the next thing. And I think that helps a lot. I mean, really, it's just like, you can't, like, it's not bad to feel the emotion. It's bad to dwell and to like feel. Generally, the follow-up emotions are not good. So like the feeling good about something that you've done is good, but feeling good about feeling good is like becoming prideful. And the same thing with like feeling bad about doing something bad is not bad, but feeling bad about doing something bad is like, now you're kind of getting stuck in this negative loop. And in both situations, you're getting further and further away from reality. So this is kind of how I think about managing my emotions in training. And I think that in a lot of cases, it follows over to competition as well. I think competition, you want to kind of default to positivity because, the risks are higher. Whereas in training, you can allow yourself to feel it a little bit more.
Yeah. But I think it's an important thing you just sort of mentioned there, which a lot of people will get, people get attached to the feeling, right? One way or the other. You have to have that short memory, but a lot of people don't think about that when it comes to the good feelings part, right? So yeah, when you lose and everything else, that's where people really focus. Man, I feel like crap, da 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 da. But if you're thinking about the good side, like don't get too attached to this, because like you said, this is one roll, this is one day, this is not all the time. This isn't how it's always going to be. And I think doing that, like getting rid of the attachment to all the positive, like enjoy it, but don't get too attached to it, helps kind of manage your expectations. And if you kind of have like, I don't want to say low expectations, you can have high standards for yourself in the way that you train and everything that you do, but have like sort of low expectations of how this is supposed to go. Because if you get really attached to all this, I've submitted this guy, and I won this tournament, and then you sort of expect this for yourself. Then when you lose, boom, those lows are a lot lower because you're coming down from this sort of high place from yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like it's all like that goes back to like the point that like I think training we should be focused on developing our skills. Like even if we're getting like right now, I think probably. So we're doing CJI camp. Probably, let's see, like 70% of our training is specific training right now. So it's like very goal oriented, very like, or like focused on developing specific skills that are going to help us for CJI. And I think that like anytime I feel like I'm getting a little like in my head, whether it's too good or too bad, I think specific training, like breaking the game down, really helps, because it forces me to either, if I'm feeling bad, I'll like work on something I'm good at, or if I'm feeling good, I'll work on something I'm bad at, and it kind of levels me out. Like if I'm feeling really good, I'll do some leg lock, or feeling really bad, I'll do some leg lock rounds, because I'm like better than most folks in leg lock positions. And then if I'm feeling bad about myself, I'll do like backgrounds with Ethan Crellenston, or I'll go just into somebody else's strength, and that'll knock me down real quick in there. So I'm lucky that I have like access. I know some gyms, it's like some gyms, there's the head instructor, and he kind of like dogs on everybody else, and he doesn't really have people who challenge him. But I'm really lucky that I have people who are like, if I want to, I can find somebody who's better than me at pretty much anything. So I'm lucky in that regard.
What's been like the biggest, or maybe some of the things that have kind of changed your jiu-jitsu being a B team? Like, how do you feel like you've evolved your game being there?
So it's funny. When I first moved, I was really worried about like not being able to like withstand the hard training, because it is hard training most days. I'm way more durable now than when I moved. Like I used to struggle a lot with my back or just like different injuries, and I still like I get injured less frequently, if at all, like different from before. And I think part of that is just being in a more professional room. I approach training more like a professional athlete, which means I'm focusing more on recovery. I care about my sleep way more. I'm focusing on like strength and conditioning, and I'm like doing it properly, nutrition, diet, all that stuff. So I think the biggest thing is just like being a professional athlete and doing the things. Like I was training like a professional athlete for a long time, but I wasn't like doing I wasn't not training like a professional athlete, doing the things outside of training that make you like excel or make you last in this sport.
Almost like living, like you were training like one, but you weren't living like a.
Yes,
like
there you go. That's what I should have said. That's
what I felt like you were saying. Like doing all you're doing the right stuff. Yeah, the right stuff in the gym, right? You're getting you're training hard, you're putting the work in, but outside of it, you weren't doing some of the. I mean, sometimes we call it low hanging fruit, right? For us older guys, I'm in my 40s and Chewy's in his 40s, so it's like we have to have the sleep and the recovery and the strength conditioning, or like younger guys and are going to just have their way. So for me, especially, like I'm just very much, I do this part-time, as not even part-time. Like I just do it for fun. I'm a recreational really grappler. And so for me to be able to at least be competitive with some of these high level and younger people, I have to really do the other stuff, which many neglect, I think, because you can.
Yeah. And it's not like I was being super like unprofessional before.
Sure.
Like I've seen like, cause I've trained around a lot. I know a lot of different, I've seen some guys who I'm like, how are you able to like some guys have just terrible diets and they perform great. And I've never really been like that, but I was okay at it. And I think that I really got pretty good at it, like living well in the last like 2 years since I've been down here. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that's changed.
Yeah. Talking about your ideas on durability and living like an athlete, in one of your posts you were talking about taking precautions to avoid injuries. Like obviously you sort of mentioned it in the post that injuries, it's an athletic sport. They're just part of it. It happens, right? But you're in a hard training environment, you're training hard at a very high level. What are some of the things that you feel like have helped you the most with your ability to train hard but remain fairly durable or to recover quickly?
So I think that I guess one thing I will just kind of preface is like I've never taken any kind of steroids or anything. It's super common at my level in the sport, where like tons of guys are, and I don't really rag on anybody who does or doesn't because it's not illegal, but I've never taken anything. I think that I haven't really felt the need to yet. I'm hoping I don't, but I don't know.
How old are you?
I'm 27. So
yeah, okay.
Young fella.
But
no, I mean it's good. It's like it's like the best thing. It's like this way, for some reason, and again, I just share this with anybody listening. If for some reason you ever do decide to, you can do so as a like an adult with a fully formed brain who can make a very intelligent choice, rather than being like a 20-year-old kid who's doing dumb stuff with their body that could have long-lasting effect to their endocrine system. So sorry to interrupt. Yeah, but no, go.
You're totally right. But I think the main thing, like strength and conditioning, I think is a huge thing, especially strength training. Like I lift weights at least twice a week, normally 3 times a week. Sometimes I dial it back a little bit, like when we're in camp, just because of training intensity. But like I think strength training like is the cornerstone. Like you need to be lifting. You need to be like, if you're training jiu-jitsu hard, you need to be lifting. I find that like most of the time, we've been joking about this a little bit recently, just especially because training's been so hard in the gym with CJI coming up. But it's like jiu-jitsu mostly makes me feel worse. Strength training makes me feel better.
Yeah.
And so like just offsetting that hard training with some strength training is really big. And then like I don't do a ton of like massage or like that kind of stuff. I'll sauna like once a week, maybe. That's kind of it. But I used to sauna at like 3-4 times a week because we had one at my old gym. But like sauna is good. These like little things. But I feel like it's really like sleep, diet, strength training is like the the simple stuff, also the cheap stuff. Like it's not super expensive to get a gym membership and lift weights. Like eating a good diet is like, it's in comparison with like buying the fancy gadgets and gizmos, or like getting your cold plunge. This stuff doesn't not work, but I think the basics are like going to take you way further than the gadgets and gizmos, and extra stuff will.
I agree 100%. With your lifting, is there a particular plan that you follow? Are you more like, can I ask this question? And I'm not looking for like a one or thing, or they're just curious. Do you follow like a sort of a generalized lifting plan just to sort of strengthen the whole body? Or do you do more of like a sports specific program where you're doing things that sort of mimic the movements that you're doing? What kind of lifting program do you do?
My lifting is pretty simplistic. So it's like a lot of just like bench, squat, deadlift. And then I do it at like a load that's like I when I was younger, I used to lift super heavy because I thought it was fun. And I also used to train with Dante quite a bit, who's been
Dante's and all the West Side stuff. And
he's
Dante's
a different kind of strong. So I was like, oh, I have to do this if I want to be strong. And I found that is like, I'm strong for my weight class, and in the weight room, I don't move the kind of weight that is like, or that I used to, like I used to be deadlifting over 400 pounds. I can't remember the last time I put 300 on there. And it's like something that maybe if I wasn't training jiu-jitsu so much, I would try to do heavier, but like mostly it's just the exercises don't hurt. It's like the load that usually messes me up. So I try to just manage the load and manage the training volume so that it's, and it's not like anything super crazy, bench, squat, deadlift, some variations, but everything is like a push, a pull, a hinge, and then a lot of core stuff, because I've had issues with my back in the past, and I started doing like just like core stability, planks, leg lifts, this kind of stuff, and that's been huge for me as well. So like anybody who has like low back problems, any like core, hitting core stuff really hard was huge for me.
Yeah, I remember, I was young and got into like powerlifting and stuff and doing strongman when I was in like my 20s, and then in my late 20s, early 30s, I was having some low back issues, some knee issues with lifting, dropped the weight a little bit, more of a moderate weight that I'm moving, and then started to do the same thing you're talking about, a lot of planks and different core strength exercises, and it took care of a lot of that stuff. My knees feel better now at like 40 than they did when I was probably 29, just by backing, like you said, the load. Like the movement itself is fine, the squat's fine. It's just the load on it, trying to go super heavy, especially when you're doing jiu-jitsu and you're training like all the time. Your body can only be 100% in one area like that physically.
Yeah, I think that's like a huge thing. I think a lot of young guys are always like I know for me, I was like, if I want to be the strongest, I have to lift the most weight. So I have to do it today as hard as I could. And I also like listen to my body. So like if we do a really hard session, or like maybe if it isn't even a super hard session, but I pushed a little harder than normal, I'll back off in the weight, and I'll like still go to the gym and do the workout. But like, instead of putting 2 plates on for the squat, I'll put like 185 and see how it goes and try to work from there. And so just like being able to like modify my workouts based on how my body is feeling is something that I didn't do well when I was young. And now I feel like it is like, I'm almost like, why would you not do that?
What's been maybe one of the most challenging things about being a full-time athlete for you?
For a long time, it was the money. It's just like hard to make a living doing jiu-jitsu. So like for a long time, I was like I was doing ghostwriting on the side. I had client work. I was writing my newsletter. And then the last year has been, ever since I got to do ADCC, everything has been, fingers crossed, but like I've been able to like, haven't really had the same kind of financial struggles like that I had when I was first moving down here, teaching a lot of classes, teaching a lot of seminars. And I've, I think, done a good job of like the basis of my brand and my business is education. So like, I'm not like, if Chris loses a match, my whole thing falls apart. But that was like something I really struggled with in the early days. And B Team has been like a huge help with that as well. Kind of like what I was saying in the very beginning, like just having a large platform has given me tons of connections for seminar. Like I'm going to do a camp in the Philippines in October, which is something I would have never even like imagined, but it's like just a cool opportunity I've been able to get from B Team and, teaching and stuff like that. So the hardest part for a long time was like just trying to make ends meet and go by, and also like still compete and do well. So it was like you know, you're worried about money, but you're also like, you got to compete that weekend. And even if you win, you don't really make anything. So this is definitely, I think, the biggest challenge for being like a full-time jiu-jitsu athlete. So like for me, I work a lot on my business outside of just competing, because I know like your days as an athlete don't last forever. You're gonna like, you gotta have something that outlives your competitive success.
Yeah. What's been have you had like an odd job, that like a very weird odd job that you did during this time that
I mean, like, it's kind of weird because like my background was writing, so I didn't do like traditional odd jobs. I had like a job ghostwriting for like crypto brands, which was
Okay.
weird because I didn't know anything about crypto, but I needed the job, so I learned like
Were these like
what
blog posts, or were these books, or what was
Twitter
this?
threads. I was doing
Twitter
like
threads,
Twitter
okay.
threads for some pretty big creators in like the Twitter space, like people who have like 500,000 followers on Twitter. And
Okay.
I was writing their like crypto content, but I was like watching Crypto for Dummies to create the content. And so I did that last year. I was doing that for about 6 months last year. And it was cool. Like it was a good experience and I learned a lot. And a lot of the stuff I learned, I've transferred over to like my jiu-jitsu writing and just my other writing. But that was like a weird one. I'm trying to think if there's any others that I had in the early days. I mean, I worked in like a restaurant when I was younger, that kind of stuff. But I think the weirdest one was learning crypto in a weekend to write about crypto.
That's wild, man. And you have like, I mean, you're 500,000 followers. I mean, it's a lot of people there listening to whatever advice you're sharing, essentially.
Yeah, I felt like super. I was like, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Everybody's gonna know. And then I wouldn't even post it. I would just send it to the client and they would post it. And then I would like go on and all the comments are like, this is great. I learned so much. And I'm like, I also learned so much doing this.
Is that your, did you go to college for writing, or what was like your background writing?
I mean, I studied like broadcast journalism, and I did that, and I was like, I don't really want to be like on the news or anything, but it was like I should have probably majored in like print journalism, but the way the classes were, it was like the print classes where I couldn't have gone to noon class, so I did broadcast journalism because I could have gone to jiu-jitsu. Which is, I would not advise other people to choose their major based on the jiu-jitsu training schedule, but if that's what you want to do, you know,
it seems like it worked out, man.
Worked out for me. I'm either the exception or I'm the rule. I'm not sure.
You're a possibility. We'll say it.
I'm a possibility. Right? Yeah,
you're a possibility. Yeah. How do you, when you were talking about money, and I asked this because, you know, different situations, different circumstances. I went full time in 2010, and you know, lack of money was a big thing, right? And you know, I was sleeping on an air mattress that deflated in the middle of the night, and I would have to like press the button, they would blow back up, whatever. What was the difficult part about not having money at that period? Because you're probably in your early to mid 20s, roughly. Mid 20s. So, you know, like what do you think the toughest part about looking back on it? Because you're not that far removed from it. Looking back on it was like, man, I don't have any money. Like, what was the hardest part about that for you?
I think that's a good question. I think just the hardest part was like, I mean, there's, I think, two aspects. It's just life is harder. Like, it's just, it's like, you can't do as much stuff. Money gives you the freedom to do stuff.
Sure.
And then I think the other thing was it wasn't so much the like not having money. Like I could get by not eating out that much or like not going on trips or whatever, but it was like the wondering if this is forever that I think that like you have especially when you're young, you're like, is this like, why am I doing this? I chose this, you know? And so I think that was the big thing. But like, I think that also just makes me like super grateful that like now I can be like, you know, if me and my fiance go out to dinner, it's like, I'm not worried about what the check is, which is like a small thing that like
that's a huge thing.
Yeah. Or like tipping when I go for coffee. Like I'm not like a millionaire, but I'm, you know, doing well enough that like if I don't feel like weird about it anymore, which is a big thing for me mentally. And I think that's like something when I was struggling a lot. I think like every single purchase was a source of anxiety. And now it's like only like big purchases are a source of anxiety, which is, I think, maybe how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, no, I remember. That's why I asked. I remember those same feelings. I remember, you know, I'm 24 when I went full time, and you know, my mom and parents, they're like, "What the hell are you doing?" I quit the job. I was making pretty decent money. They're like, "What are you doing?" I don't know. Like, and then I'm you know, looking at all my friends and they're buying all this stuff and they have these houses, they have all this stuff. And here's me in the air mattress in the middle of the night. And I've got my gi and gear in one little bag and then my regular clothes and that's it, you know? And, you know, thinking to myself, is this the right move? Like, you know, thinking to my, you know, there's the dialogue going, you're like, you dumbass, what are you doing? This isn't going to work out. And then later on being able to, like you said, like where it sounds like such a small thing, but it seems like you're this kind of person, if you think about it deeply enough, what a blessing it really is in the grand scheme of things to be able to, like, you know, if me and my wife and kid go out and have dinner, I don't have to like look at the check and go, oh my God, oh geez. So, you know, is this gonna, no, I mean, it's cool. Yeah. Okay. Here, take the card and here's your tip, whatever. And I can tip well. And I enjoy tipping well because I don't have to worry about it. That's a cool thing. So, good on you. Good on you for, you know, getting the business stuff going. And I was curious about that.
I think I used to always hear about because I've always been interested in just like business and like building like projects and wealth and like all that stuff. And I've always spent a lot of time like reading and learning about it. And I would always hear people say like, you got to have the abundance mindset. And like when you're doing jiu-jitsu, I'm like, there is no abundance. I can't see it. And then it's like, now I feel like I'm like always like, okay, you know, I have enough. And if I don't, I have the capacity to like fill the whatever gap there is. And I think that's like a powerful feeling that I didn't appreciate until like pretty recently.
Yeah.
I think you got to look at, honestly, like, and you're right there, like in a B team, but with what Craig did, a very unconventional thing, you know, doing something that was very different. Like we went to, Chewy and I went to CJI and ADCC, went to both, and the environment was totally different. One was like CJI felt like really like exciting, like very like this energy. And then ADCC felt a little bit like it got some of the wind taken out of its sails. And it was Craig took a big risk, you know, like that's a big time thing, but you have to do that. You have to take that risk to try to get you guys, get people paid. And I think it's helped and started some of these other promotions paying more money. And I think it's helped a lot of people go into jiu-jitsu probably full time and commit. And now you get better athletes and athletes coming over and people can actually make a career and a living out of it, which was a lot harder back in the day.
Yeah, the sport has changed so much just in in the time I've been in Austin, it's changed a lot, but like the last year, the last 12 months has been crazy. Like just in terms of like opportunities and like different stuff happening and the exposure and like this and that and like all this crazy stuff that I completely never would have imagined, you know, for like myself or just for as an athlete, like having the chance to like do all these things. Like the CJI is like absolutely completely changing the sport. And it was like when I was coming up, it was like we didn't have anything like that or anything even remotely close to that. And you know, ADCC was the only thing, and you had to win ADCC to get a chance to do seminars to make really good money. But like some guys, it wouldn't really. You had to submit. Like Gordon killed it because Gordon just messed everybody up, and like of course everybody wanted to learn from Gordon, but not everybody who won ADCC had that same opportunity, you know.
Well, and Gordon's it's the same thing that Craig does. When you really look at like what they do, yes, it's like, you know, Gordon is really, really good, and you know, so is Craig. Craig's amazing, right? Both are very skilled, but both of them have transcended it to the point where at this point, you know, neither one of them could ever compete again. And they're like a celebrity, right? So like there was a story I remember reading about where, you know, essentially this is true. These celebrities, you will pay these celebrities to just, they don't care what you want them to do, whether you want them to come to a party, do a commercial, whatever, here's their fee. And you're paying for a celebrity. Yeah. You're paying for this person to be there because this person has some sort of value. So you'll pay this person. And I think with like Craig and Gordon, both, they sort of have this, they're like jiu-jitsu celebrities to the point where like, you know, I mean, Craig's bouncing around doing his stuff and he has his own brand of the way that he markets himself. But it's like Craig's in the business of being Craig. All the stuff that he does is an extension of that. And so is Gordon. Gordon is in the business of being Gordon. Now they have things that they do exceptionally well. But I think that's one of those things where you look at that, they're doing what has happened in other sports. You look at Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is in the business of being Michael Jordan at some point where, yeah, he's playing basketball really well, but selling shoes and all this other stuff, this is a whole nother thing, right? So they've both of those guys with their personalities have just transcended just the normal, hey, I'm a good competitor. Because there's like so many world champions, there's ADCC champions, and most people can't name them. They don't know who they are. But you can say, I know this guy who was he was the reigning number 2 person over and over again. You know, there's Gordon. It's right. Like, okay, you know Gordon. Now, why do you know Gordon? Because of his personality and the way that he promotes himself. Why do you know Craig Jones? Because of the way that he promotes himself, right? They're in the business of being them. And whether you like either one of them or not, it's intelligent what they do to promote themselves on some level, right?
And people like rivalry too, right? Those guys are rivals. I mean, they were kind of like rivals, came together, trained together, and then they had this split. And I think that people, you know, I don't really care so much about that, like in jiu-jitsu, but like I think people outside of jiu-jitsu, it brings attention to it. And you got Craig, you know, who now he's working, you know, the corners for UFC fighters. You know, he's their jiu-jitsu. I mean, it's like it's brought that attention down kind of to everyone else, I think, which is helpful. And you guys, a B team, like, I mean, you all have such a great crew out there, and you all, it seems like it's helped everybody out a little bit, which is cool.
Yeah, it's like, I think what Craig did was he kind of like, he like built this huge brand off of never winning ADCC, but I think he's also like an excellent grappler, like literally,
of course,
never won ADCC, but like top 5 grappler in the world at his peak, you know. And so I think he didn't exactly build a brand off losing. Like, he beat a ton of incredible guys, but he laid down the like framework that you don't need to like win every single match in order to have a career in jiu-jitsu, which I think is paving the way for the next generation of guys to come through. So I think like he kind of didn't actually build a brand off losing. Like, he won a lot and he was incredible and he was like Polaris champion and you know, all this stuff, but at the same time, like, built a brand off of like just being a incredible athlete and personality.
Yeah, I think one of the things about Craig is he's funny as hell. I enjoy watching his content because it cracks me up. He's just got just a funny personality, and he's ridiculous, which is a very different side than you see, you know, with Gordon, essentially, like more serious and yeah, Craig's awesome. I mean, Craig's so good, and he's done a lot of big things. And I do want to ask you, like, who has kind of influenced your grappling? Is there someone that's kind of, even as of late or even the beginning, who's been somebody that's really like molded or helped you develop your game?
Yeah, I mean, so like my coach Jeff Serafin in Chicago was like super I think my game is very similar to his game, how his game was when he was younger. Like, he put a very flexible open guard and then good pressure passing, which is kind of my game. But like, in terms of guys who I study and people who I've learned the most from, and like who are active competitors, I think like Keenan was my first kind of role model in jiu-jitsu, both in terms of like just style, but also like creativity. And I always liked that Keenan was like, even if not all of his inventions, you know, because some things are like not truly inventions, but like the fact that he was innovating, I enjoyed, or at least trying to innovate. So I would always try. I remember being like a blue purple belt. I was always trying to come up with the next like super guard, like the next worm guard. And then it's funny because like now the Woj Lock is like my thing, but that was like a complete accident. Like, I tried to invent many things and failed, and then I stopped trying to invent things, and now I have something named after me. But I think Keenan was a super impactful guy in my career. I really like watching Pato. I trained with Dante a lot, so he was like the first guy who I like the first professional grappler who I spent a lot of time with, and he's super disciplined, really like kind of a well-rounded guy. And I think that spending time with somebody like that impacted the way that I was approaching jiu-jitsu as I was becoming more professional. And then obviously all the guys at B team, like Nick Rod and Nicky Ryan, especially Nicky Ryan recently, because he's been kind of coaching us. All of the skills that I've developed in the last like 4 months, I got to attribute to Nicky, because he's given me a lot of extra help one-on-one in terms of like wrestling and stuff like that. So I think like Nicky, Keenan, Dante, these are the guys who I was like, have impacted my game the most over the years, apart from my original coach, Jeff, in Chicago.
Yeah, cool.
So something you mentioned in one of your recent posts is you were talking about getting things you're working towards, right? Mid-year reflections is what it was, and one of them was getting better at controlling your emotions. We were talking about ego battles and talking about the mental side of it. And you said you had basically a real tough situation after one of your matches recently. When you were saying getting better at controlling your emotions, like what happened, and when you look back at it, what do you want to do differently with it?
Yeah, so I mean, I got armbarred in 20 seconds recently, which was
Yeah.
like probably the worst loss I've ever had in my career. Like just the fastest and most humiliating on a big stage.
Yeah.
And so like just a super I think it would have been hard for anybody to have that loss, not just me.
Mhm.
And so I think that it's not that I'm like super bad at controlling my emotions. It's just
Sure.
that it is more of a like something that I feel like I want to be more. It's like I'm chasing this perfection that maybe doesn't exist, but I want to
Yeah.
be like just more stoic in these situations. I want to handle losing better. I want to handle like the big moments better. And so that's
Mhm.
like just been a big focus of mine for the last month, I would say, last 3-4 weeks. Just been working on that. Journaling and like meditating and like talking through stuff, just like I think working on the soft skills. I would say if we consider like jujitsu like the hard skill, then working on the
Mhm.
soft skills as well, like mindset stuff.
That's tough. It's tough to do that because kind of going back to what you talked about earlier, it's like it's one thing to like say it to yourself, and then in the moment when you're actually experiencing it and like dealing with it, that kind of stuff takes practice. It's going out there and getting, because if you go out there and get like grinded down for like 5 or 6, 7 minutes and you lose, it's like, damn, that wasn't a good performance. But it's kind of this like you feel it coming versus, you're full of steam, you get out there, get caught real quick, like you didn't even really break a sweat, really. There's just something about that. It's like you didn't get that full exertion of yourself to really, you felt like you made a quick mistake and you never got to see what you could really do. And it's frustrating. I've had those before. And then one of the other things you mentioned in that post was wanting to travel less. So again, I relate with this. This is why I'm asking. But you're in the situation where you're, now you're getting seminar options and you're being offered to travel more and so forth. What's making you want to travel less?
Yeah, so I'm super lucky in that I have more seminar opportunities than I can physically do, unless I like just drive or unless I travel every single weekend or like mix it up and travel during the week for a seminar and then on the weekend for another. So it's like very like blessed to be in that opportunity, but it is just a lot on the body. Like I have I have my home here in Austin. I have a fiance who doesn't really love it when I'm gone every weekend. You know, and it's the other thing is traveling constantly is cool, but it is not great for my jujitsu development as an athlete. So there was like I think it was an interview with Danaher a few years ago or a post that he wrote on his like Instagram or something like that, where he was talking about how like the reason they all liked living in New York was because like New York, you have so many different cultures and so many different people, and you can kind of mimic the experience of traveling, but you're still at home and you can still have the routine, which is going to give you the skills that you want. And for me, I've kind of like at first I was like, when I didn't have opportunities, when I didn't really have money and I was struggling, all I wanted was to have the ability to go places and do jujitsu. And now I can go anywhere and do jujitsu, which is the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And now I'm like, wait, this is too much. Hold on. And so like kind of balancing like just the routine, which is going to make me the best version of myself so I can have the best future, the best opportunities, and want also just perform my best. So like I'm doing a seminar in Oklahoma. I don't know when this podcast is going to come out, but I'm doing a seminar in Oklahoma this weekend. And then it's like 7 weeks till CJI and I'm not going anywhere, which is like a deliberate move. Whereas like in the past, I would be like, oh, maybe I'll squeeze one in mid-August or, try to make sure that everybody's happy. And then so like just right now, I'm just locking in fully on CJI and not traveling at all. And then after CJI, I'm going to travel a little bit and it's going to be more like just boom, 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 get a few seminars done and then lock back in for whatever the next challenge is at the time. But like, just, I think having that routine to build your skills to the best that it can be. And also just like for my life stability, like just having a routine in terms of writing and running the business and all that stuff, it all functions better when I'm not constantly living out of a suitcase.
Yeah, no, again, from what I gather from you, from the scene that you got a business, you write on a regular basis, there's a real importance of routine to that. And, maybe it'll make more sense. Maybe like someday you're older, you're not competing as much and maybe you travel more. But I also think about maybe sometimes, because I was the same way. I thought when I was younger, I was, oh man, it'll be so cool to be able to travel all the time. Like these guys do whatever. And then now, like, I try to do as little of it as possible. Like, I mean, there's stuff I have to travel for, but I'm like, man, traveling's tough. And there's all these things. And now I want to be home doing my thing, working with my students, training, working on the business, stuff like that. And I think sometimes maybe it's almost like sometimes I'll get people that will come in that want to do like a mixed martial arts fight, or they want to train really hard for some competition, et cetera, et cetera. And they think that they want whatever that thing is. And then like when they actually experience it, they're like, oh, I don't think I want this. You get the guy that wants to be like the MMA fighter. Then like, all right, man, you're going to be training about 20 hours a week total, depending here or there. Oh, I'm not doing that. I just want to like go, I don't want to go fight, so maybe, oh man, I want to go travel, make all this money. Then you're like sitting in an airport eating crappy food, not really getting your training, your writing's going down the tubes because you're jet lagged. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this isn't for me. So.
Well, like when I was younger, I loved like Bourdain's books and his show and everything, and like traveling. Yeah. I loved the like romance of traveling, and I still love the romance of traveling. But like the more I read about like the life, it's like he's on the road for 300 days a year, and like it's like, wait, hold on a second, that's maybe not. Maybe I just want to go on vacation once, and that's what I need.
It's lonely, right? Like you're never really.
I mean, you can bring your fiance with you and stuff, but I mean, even my wife, like we go on a vacation, it's about 7 days, man, and we're looking around, we're like, kind of want to, like, we're lucky enough to have some property, it's got some acreage, and so it's like, man, kind of just want to be in my own bed, and I want to wake up in the morning, I want to go walk out on the property and just be in my own space. I don't want to be sitting in a Airbnb or eating food that I didn't make, maybe I can make it there, but just not being a part of the routine. And again, going for me, like with the writing and with all the work that I do, it's always not quite as sharp as it is when I'm at home in that rhythm with everything.
Well, it's funny. Last year after ADCC, me and my fiance went to France for a week, and it's like day 5, we're in Nice, like overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, and I just pulled out my laptop and I started writing. She's like, what are you doing? Like, you said you wanted vacation, and I'm like, I guess maybe we should go back now.
But you're a writer, dude, and it's like I don't know, even like when I go on vacations, like I still like, because writing's kind of like everything that I do sort of centers around writing, whether it gets posted as written content or not. It's like the vehicle that runs everything, that sort of creates stuff. And so for me, even like, it does not matter what vacation I'm on. It's like I'm waking. It doesn't matter if it's Christmas. Doesn't matter what it is. I'm like up early before everything gets started to get that done, because it's almost like become like a brushing my teeth. I don't know how it feels for you.
Yeah,
maybe you can talk. Maybe you can talk about your writing practice. It's like if I don't write during the day, it's like, man, it's like going to bed with your not brushing your teeth. You feel like something's off.
Yeah, it's like I feel like my brain is a little cluttered. It's not organized. I'll definitely talk about the practice a little bit, but one thing I wanted to ask you, Chewy, is do you like, because I know you're like your videos, I watched your videos since I was like a white belt. Are those like you're writing the kind of basis of them, or is it off the dome, or kind of what's the process there?
It's both. So I have a daily email that I send out, right? And that daily email, like I have books and different things and products that I've made off of those, right? But it'll be maybe, I'll do an email, and then I enjoyed the email. I enjoyed the ideas, and I think they're useful ideas. Some people replied back saying it was useful to them. Okay, let's make that into a podcast. Let's make that into it. Now, when I do the videos, none of them are ever scripted. They're always just sort of like, I kind of have an idea of where I'm trying to get to with it, and let's go. You know what I mean? So I'm terrible scripted. So if I've tried to do stuff scripted and it's brutal, I sound so robotic. So usually I kind of know what I'm trying to tell you.
Like
and then and I'm long-winded. So I'll just go right there. But usually, but I just start with the writing, because the writing practice, I feel like you said, helps kind of organize your thinking about something so that you can kind of, and especially like, because I send out an email, I try to make the emails short relatively most of the time, between 250, maybe 350, 400 words. So I don't give myself too much place to work with. So I got to really get into it. And so that lends itself into, all right, I'm going to talk, but here's the core message that I'm trying to get to. But it all kind of usually starts from an email first.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, my process is pretty similar. It's like, if I like, kind of like you said, if I don't do it in the morning, whether it's like on a tropical vacation or traveling or whatever, it's like I always got to do something, whether it's in my phone or generally I prefer like somewhere than on the computer. I generally do I do a newsletter once a week. I do social media. I used to do it 5 days a week. We kind of cut it back a little bit because I've been doing more book projects recently. So I wrote my book, and then I've been working on I've been co-authoring like a Jiu-Jitsu business book for Kenny Kim. And then been doing the paid newsletter. And then I had a writing focused newsletter that I've been working on as well. But I kind of paused that because like the Jiu-Jitsu got so crazy. Like this was before CJI and all that and all the seminars and stuff, but that's like kind of something that I'd like to bring back soon. Like just kind of, because I spent a lot of time working on the craft of writing. So like kind of just focus, like educating people on things that have helped me, because I started just like blogging on Medium at the very beginning, like twice a week. And, now it's like this whole thing, it keeps the lights on. So kind of just the process that I've used there. So that's kind of the main stuff I do for writing, but I do something every morning. And usually it all starts with like a little journal. So I'll do like 10 thoughts, which is either a to-do list or things I'm feeling or things I'm struggling, or just like an analysis of like a body scan, like of my brain. And that kind of stuff just keeps me like organized and like going towards whatever I'm supposed to be going towards, like oriented towards a big goal.
Now, when you write, like, so let's say you're writing your newsletter, you send out weekly, do you get really like, there's different schools of thought on this and different views. Do you get really into being what I would say the way that a English teacher would prefer you to write, as far as it, like the layout, like everything being nice and proper? Okay. Cause I'm very much the same way. I'm very conversational. Like I try to basically make it as easy as possible for it to be consumed, rather than it being like actually properly written, if you'll say. Because I think, especially in today's world, and I mean, maybe you would agree as a writer, like I will purposely put stuff into my writing sometimes to see, like, did you read this all the way through? And surprisingly, I will see that if it's written in a certain way where you strategically use white space, smaller sentences with bigger paragraphs, and sort of working them so they're getting this sort of ride a little bit, you can get them down to the end, opposed to what, a lot of times if you just get a wall of text, if you really want to read it, you'll read it. But otherwise, a lot of people see that and they go, let me, go somewhere else.
Yeah, there's a book I read years ago called The Art and Business of Online Writing by Nicholas Cole. And part of it is like explaining how to make money as a writer and like sell ebooks and courses, and this is how you do it, and this is how you make them, and this kind of stuff. But like there's I think the most interesting part of the book for me was he talks about like the best formats for introductions or articles that is most likely to get somebody to read all the way through. So like, and there's like a few different strategies, but one that I really like and I use a lot in mine, my newsletters, is like the 1-3-1 strategy. So it's like intro, hook, and then 3 sentences explaining what you're about to write about. And then like more artfully said, but like this is what we're talking about today. Let's go. Like that kind of structure.
Like a transition. We're getting
like a transition. And this is like stuff like that I read that book like 3 years ago, and that I've been using that for years in my writing, and it's been super helpful to like just have some sort of structure. I don't always do the 1-3-1 or the 1-2-1 or whatever, but like just different ways to structure the writing. And I think that the way that I write is I think about like most people who are reading this are reading on their phone, or they've got like a million other tabs open and they're barely paying attention. So I need to find a way to use words that are going to hook them in and make them focus on like, they have me, and then they have like Instagram Reels on the other tab. I got to compete with Instagram Reels. So I got to figure out a way to make this real interesting.
Well, and that's the beauty of like if you have like an actual, again, some people start an email newsletter and they're horrible because it's basically nothing. There's no actual entertainment value or information. Just, hey, I've got a sale for something. Buy this, buy this, buy this. Opposed to, there's nothing wrong with promoting your stuff. It's how we make a living. It's part of our job. But we do a good job, right? But putting something in there that is useful to them there you actually, I think of it. Anytime someone opens an email, and this is where I'm going with email, I want to make sure if they open one of my emails, I'm giving you something for that time. You gave me your eyeballs for a little bit. Let me see if I can pay you back something that, even if it just gets you to think a little differently about something. I hope you enjoy this. And by the way, I have something to buy if you want to, but no harm, no foul.
This is kind of how I do it as well.
Yeah, but I like the idea about email opposed to a lot of other media, because like social media is just, it's getting worse where it's like the algorithms are so nutty, and you could have a bazillion followers and they hardly ever see your stuff, whereas in an email, like, at least for now, if someone clicks on that email, it's there. There's no like tabs on the side. They're not just doing this constantly. They're in an application that sort of has, that they already understand that they're going to be here for a second and they're going to read. It's kind of like YouTube versus Instagram or TikTok. If you go to YouTube, you sort of click a video and you're willing to sit down and watch it for maybe 3 to 5+ minutes, versus like when you watch the habits. I'll watch it like when I go to a someone that's in this space, I people watch, and you watch the habits of people scrolling, and it's just this sort of manic movement of their finger as they're just scrolling through. And I watched one girl, she was like switching back and forth from TikTok and Instagram. Like, it's like, how on earth are you going to compete on that and get someone to, and you can every now and then, you can get some people to do it, but you got to be like, it's got to be good. It's got to be sharp. Whereas if, you sit down and email, YouTube, whatever, I feel like those mediums are better for actually getting people to say, hey, like sit here and actually enjoy this for a minute. And, they all have their place, but.
Yeah, I think YouTube is I haven't used YouTube much myself, but just like as a consumer, I think that YouTube is like, the people who I love to follow are all people I follow on YouTube. Like I'll follow people on Instagram because I know them or like whatever, but on YouTube, it's like, if I'm following you on YouTube, it's because I enjoy your content,
Sure.
It's more, it's commitment. Essentially, you're committing to some time and some, your attention.
Yeah, and same thing with like newsletters. Like the newsletters that I subscribe to, most of them I at least am opening once a week, trying to read them and see what's up. And even if I'm not buying something from them, it's like I'm like lurking on a lot of newsletters. I would say it's like the term, I think, is just like lurking on like newsletters and reading them, but maybe not like buying everybody's stuff. But then if I see something that like really solves a problem for me, it's like I'm pretty quick to pull the trigger.
Of course. Yeah. Well, and even then it's like, the lurking's fun. I had a guy on one of my newsletters. He's been with me, God, like for 7 years. This was like, he bought something and he was like, man, he bought a bunch of stuff. He's like, man, I just was never in a place financially to buy a bunch of stuff because kids, wife, whatever, been training a bunch. And he's like, I bought, some of your gear and I bought this other stuff from you. And so like, you never know when a person that's lurking, if they're engaged with it, that's fine. Cause you never know when, from that it turns over, or, if they're enjoying it, then, who cares? That's what it's there for them, right? It's there to enjoy it and read it and stuff like that. So as long as they're consuming it, that's awesome.
I think that like putting a lot of effort into the free content is something that like, this is not like a content creator education podcast.
No, we're just talking shop right now. So like,
but like, I think putting effort into your free stuff is like something that like maybe people who are like when I first started, I would be like, why should I try so hard on something that no one's going to pay for? And it's like putting effort into your free content is like the key to longevity, I think, in my experience. Like if you put the same effort into your paid content as your free content, people are going to like want your paid content because they're going to want more of what is already giving them value. And this is like what a digital product is, like a book or an ebook or something like that, or instructional.
Well, it would be like doing it's like, if you had like a trial class at your gym and you said, you're like, you half-ass that, for this person. Do you think they're going to want to sign up at your gym? Like,
that's a great example.
It's like, they're going to be like, they don't care. But if it's a good class, they enjoy themselves and they felt like you were a real person, whatever. They're like, yeah, I'll sign up for this. This was enjoyable.
Yeah, definitely.
Chris, do you think, so like you and Chewy kind of have, you guys have your jiu-jitsu, obviously where this all started was your grappling and your martial arts, but then you kind of have this versatility, right? You have these things that you kind of developed or you had, and you kind of molded them in. Is that something that you think came out of necessity? Is something happened naturally to just kind of like, get your writing as a part of your jiu-jitsu and intertwine with everything that you do?
I just like didn't want to be dumb.
Fair enough.
Like when I was young, I was like, I don't want to only be like I like jujitsu is like I love jujitsu from day one. I knew I was gonna do it for a really long time and as hard as like try to be the best I could be at it. But I was like, I don't want to only be like I don't want to only be good at jujitsu. I don't want the only thing that I have a knowledge base in to be jujitsu. And so like I got really into podcasts for a while. And then after a podcast, I was like, okay, I want to go to the source of like, cause I listen to podcasts and people are talking about all these ideas and they're talking about ideas they learned from books. And then I was like, okay, now I need to read the book so I can go to the source. And then I'd read the book and I'd be like, oh, actually I have to read this other book. And it kind of just became this like, almost like an addiction, but like a obsessive pursuit of just trying to understand the world a little bit better. And that kind of made me, then after I read a bunch of books, I'm like, I kind of want to like say some stuff now because I learned some stuff. So like I started writing when I was 23, but like I was reading like philosophy books and stuff like that. And like listening to like philosophy podcasts and just trying to study like the world for a long time. And so like, jiu-jitsu was always just like kind of just my favorite thing to do. It was like, it's kind of just a miracle that I was good at it. And I get to do it at this level and to do it this long. And it's given me like a platform to share my other ideas that I was already, learning, but it was kind of like two separate journeys. And I think maybe the for me, at least, I don't know about you, Chewy, but like the correlation is like both of them require like this like discipline. Whereas like, if you want to learn, you have to be consistent. You have to be like you have to keep your ego in check. I think maybe not leaving it at the door, but like keeping it in check. And it was like something that for me that I developed over time and I'm still trying to develop to this day. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I share that idea with you because like, when I was younger, I came from a poor upbringing, so I didn't want to be broke. And like I said, I didn't want to feel dumb either. And when I was doing jiu-jitsu, and so I started like, in my like early 20s, started like trying to read more because I looked around at all the people that I knew who had money. They all read a lot. I was like, okay, well, there's something, right? And then figured it would be good to get that some ideas for things. And then so that's a practice, right? That started for similar reasons. And then I feel like, especially when it comes to jiu-jitsu, I feel like everything's sort of, whether it's jiu-jitsu, it's philosophy, it's other sports, it's skill acquisition and knowledge, it all sort of melds together. And they're not the same ideas, they're not the same, they don't work exactly the same, but what's the idea? They kind of rhyme, they're very similar, and they have similar facets to them. With your books and everything, is there any particular books or schools of philosophy that you find interesting, or anything that you've kind of gone back to a lot?
Yeah, so my kind of journey with like right now, I'm reading a lot of classic fiction. So like The Count of Monte Cristo, some Dickens, stuff like that, Hemingway, and that's just been something because I enjoy it and I want to write fiction like down the line. So I'm like, if I read a lot of fiction, I'll like kind of understand maybe the kind of fiction writer that I want to be. And obviously, there's like a craft element, like you got to kind of respect the craft a little bit. There's going to be some learning, but just like I've been enjoying it. But before that, I was reading a lot of like, I started with Nietzsche because I was young and like kind of pissed off.
That's some heavy lifting just to begin the process. Yeah.
Yes, I read that. Some Viktor Frankl. I've got some Stoic philosophy on here. Yeah. And then I read I got really into Buddhism for a while. And so I was like reading some Buddhist stuff. What's the white guy's name? Who's the British guy? Alan Watts. I read some Alan Watts.
Oh, Alan Watts. Yeah.
There was another guy who was a monk, and I'm going to butcher his name, so I'm not going to say it. But
Thich Nhat Hanh.
Yes, that's him. I was going to butcher that.
I read a lot of his stuff. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and so I kind of just was like, I bangoed like around. I didn't really have a philosophy that I could stick to. Yeah. But I think that like trying different things was kind of the big thing for me. I recently read what's the book? I read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance recently. I
That's a
really
good one,
enjoyed
yeah.
that.
Quality. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I just have kind of always just followed my curiosity in terms of reading. I don't think there's anything that's been like the most impactful, I would say. Like just like a lot of different things kind of it's more so just been like maybe I guess Stoicism has been really impactful. Buddhism in terms of dealing with anxiety, Stoicism in terms of dealing with adversity. I think Nietzsche was like fun, you know, it's like kind of a fun thing when you're, because it's like it's a little crazy. I think Viktor Frankl's the logotherapy that he talks about. I read 2 of his books. I read Man's Search for Meaning because that's the one everybody reads, and then I read the logotherapy. He wrote a book just on logotherapy afterwards, which is kind of like about finding meaning. And I read this like when I was younger, and I struggled with like kind of direction, you know, like kind of just wanting to like understanding what I was doing. And then now I haven't really felt as curious about philosophy. Like I don't feel like I need too much. Like it almost feels like mental masturbation at this point. So I don't really go too deep into it anymore. Like I kind of just read the stuff that I am like curious about. So like if I want to learn about like strength training or being stronger, I will read a book about strength training. I will, if I want to learn about diet, I will learn about diet. If I want to learn about, I had like a book on game theory laying around here somewhere that I can't find. But just like whatever I'm curious about, I'll try to like get a book about it, which I think is like just a habit that I've picked up. Like if I want to learn something, it's like, okay, what's the best book about this thing? And then I'll do some research and try to find one that I resonate with.
And so like what you kind of going back to what we said right before. So the way that you describe that, I mean, you could easily just replace book with technique. And it's almost like, yeah, I'm just bouncing around that curiosity. And I was trying this technique and this technique. That one stuck with me. That one didn't. I mean, so yeah, there's a lot of parallels there. Have you read Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson? Have you read much of his stuff?
Oh, I have. I think I have one of his books around here on my thing.
No, you don't have to look for it. He's one that I enjoyed. I was just curious. Like Nietzsche had that thing. Was it Nietzsche that talking about philosophy? You were talking about mental masturbation. He was like, a lot of these people, they have to go into philosophy because essentially they're essentially calling them weak. He's like, because if you have all these different things, you don't have to sort of justify why you're doing this. Because that sort of, I mean, it's whatever. Anyway, we don't need to take the podcast there right now. I'm gonna go off in the weeds.
Yeah, usually that happens.
Yep.
You know what is sorry, I just have a book list. One that I actually would recommend is there's a book called Island by Aldous Huxley.
Okay,
that's really good. It's like a philosophical fiction. So Huxley wrote Brave New World, which is like basically about like medicating a society so that nobody feels pain anymore.
Right.
And the kind of he wrote Island as like a follow-up to that. So it's more like semi-spiritual, like it's kind of about the like there's this island, this like kind of ideal society where the people are very mindful and nobody really struggles with ego, and they have like this like kind of like indoctrination in place so that people are like the birds on the island fly around and they say here and now and like telling people to be present and stuff. And I think it's a really interesting kind of juxtaposition with like the kind of extreme, like kind of mind control of Brave New World, and then like the kind of opposite direction. So I think like reading Brave New World paired with Island is something that I would recommend to any listeners who are interested in philosophy, but maybe don't want to just read. Like I like it because it's presented in story form.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've read Brave New World. I've never read Island, so I'll check that one out.
It's a good one.
All right, Chris. So I want to know. Everyone probably dreams. I don't know, probably not, of having a move named after them. Or, how did you develop the Woj Lock? And then you have an instructional about that as well. Can you kind of tell us a little bit how that all came about?
Yeah, so Jeff and I would just do the reverse Aoki to each other in training all the time. Like it was just a part of our 50-50 kind of system. And it was like, I don't know why anybody else didn't do it. Like people thought it was fake or whatever, but we were doing it to each other. I hit it at brown belt for the first time. So I hit it in the gi at brown belt. And when I moved down to B team, I just would use it all the time in the gym. And I was for like a year, I was the only guy who used it. Like I tapped every person in the gym with it, like a lot. And eventually Kieran Kachuk, he was the one who was like, can you show me how to do this? I want to start doing it too. And then like within like a week, he was tapping people with it as well. And then he named it the Woj Lock. I didn't name it the Woj Lock.
Well, that's how you really know. Like that's like when someone else dubs it, that's how you know it's legit. Like, you know.
Yeah, that was like, and also just literally the best thing that could happen for my career was him naming it. I was never going to do it. And so then I went to, but I hadn't hit it in a while. Like I was using it in training a lot and I hadn't hit it in competition in a while. So I went to PGF and I hit it. I hit like a couple of Woj locks, I think. I hit like 5 other ankle locks, and I just filmed this whole ankle lock instructional of just like all my ankle locks. Some are more common, some are not so common. Just like kind of the mechanics that I have are quite good, or just like effective. And so I just filmed the instructional based on that. And every leg lock instructional today is focused on heel hooks. And I kind of did one of the first instructionals that's like only straight ankle locks, only attacking the ankle, or like most stuff today is attacking knee and ankle. And that was a Woj Lock the World. It has more than just the Woj Lock, but the Woj Lock is obviously the kind of the corners. It's like the title track.
Nucleus. Yeah, there. Everything sort of circles around.
Yeah. And it's also just the money maker, right? Because you can learn an Aoki lock from a lot of people, but it's kind of like come for the Woj Lock, and you'll also get Aoki lock, straight ankle lock, side ankle lock, all these other things. And yeah, that's kind of the story of how it became. And now what's cool is like, I think I've hit probably 3 Woj locks in competition. I just did it first. Now it's become like such a big thing that there are people out there who have hit more than me, you know, for sure. Cause like there's some of these kids who are competing every weekend and they like the move. So they're hitting it like every weekend. But that's cool. Cause that's like, you know, like Shinya Aoki only hit 1 or 2 Aoki locks in competition. Yeah. And so now I'm like 20 years from now, people are going to like, I want it to get to the point where like people know the Woj Lock, but they don't know who I am. They're like just
like the Darce choke, the DRC choke, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You could put that guy in not a like 99% of jiu-jitsu people have no idea who he is, but they just call it that.
Well, what's cool too is someone sent me a video on Gordon Ryan's YouTube channel recently of him training in the Woj Lock and talking about the mechanics a little bit. So it's like it has transcended the B team new wave rivalry, and like I'm not really involved in it either way, but it's just kind of funny that like now it's truly a thing, which is cool. Because also like kind of like I said earlier, like Keenan was my hero when I was a purple belt. So like the fact that I have something named after me that's like my thing is cool. So it's just like a cool experience that I'm just enjoying.
Maybe they'll have you out for a seminar.
That would be that would be the dream, is to have like a seminar, do a seminar at Keenan's gym, teaching something I invented to the guy. Who, like, that would be the dream, but maybe one day.
I was talking about Gordon. You might go to his.
Oh,
gym, right?
Probably not.
It's like, no, that's so cool. Is there like specific details? So when you were developing it, is there something like that went into that process of really fine tuning it, like developing it, creating all the details that made it uniquely like your move?
Yeah, so we were doing 50-50 ankle locks for a long time, but the problem is like a 50-50 straight ankle lock, it doesn't really work like at the high levels. Like maybe you can get a pop in a competition if you send it, but you're not going to get a tap usually. So what we started doing was we started exposing the heel like a Aoki lock, kind of just like a reverse Aoki lock, which is essentially what it is. And generally like I had like a lot more heel exposure than most people were doing at the time. So it was like a lot of pressure on the outside of the ankle, and then there's some pressure on the inside of the knee as well. And so that was kind of the main change from like a normal 50-50 leg lock. And even now, like sometimes I get sent, people send me them doing the Woj Lock, and it's like, they're not even really doing it. They're more just doing a 50-50 straight ankle. Some people I know just think every leg lock I do is a Woj Lock, which is cool too. But it's like a 50-50 reverse Aoki lock with quite a bit of heel exposure is the Woj Lock, the true Woj Lock.
Where can people get that instructional as well?
BJJfanatics.com, Woj Lock the World. You can pretty much always get it 50% off. So they have a code right now that's like about summer dog days 2025, and then they've got like, if there's a holiday, there's a code. If it's on the daily deal quite a bit, so like if you don't really want to buy it, you can get it 50% off, which is like $30. It's also like, I don't know why they made it so cheap, but it was only $79. So It's not expensive. And then if you get it half off, it's like $38. So it's not expensive product. It's 2 hours of instructional plus rolling footage. So I think it's a good bang for your buck.
Awesome, man. And then as far as like your books, what are some of the books and where can people find your books?
Yeah, so I wrote a free ebook. It's just, if you go to my Instagram, it's just in the link. It's called 15 Ways to Get Better at Jiu-Jitsu Faster. Totally free. The only price is that you get subscribed to my newsletter when you download the book. So you have to listen to me every week, but you can unsubscribe to that as well. And then I wrote a paperback called A Grappler's Diary. It's kind of like normally I have a copy with me on my desk, but I don't right now. But it's 151 notes on the jiu-jitsu experience. It's like kind of like Ryan Holiday's Daily Stoic, like that kind of format, like 100 like little short essays. You could read one a day, or you could read them all at once, whatever you like. It's just like short little bites. Some are about like techniques, some are about like just training, some are just about like life lessons that I learned. I wrote it like kind of in that we were talking about like the period when I didn't have any money, any opportunities. That was when I wrote the book. So it's got it's got all the highs and lows of an up and coming grappler. So that's kind of what the book's about.
Very cool. And so they can get all this at what's your website, your main place?
Yeah, so you can go to thegrapplersdiary.com. That will give you a link to the book. That will give you a link to subscribe to the newsletter, all that stuff. Or you can just go to my Instagram. Everything is linked on my Instagram, Chris M. Wojcik, Wojcik.
Cool.
Chris, man, thank you for your time, brother.
Yeah,
best of luck with everything.
So much. Thank you so much for having me. I don't listen to a lot of jiu-jitsu podcasts, but I've listened to the Chewjitsu podcast a lot over the years. So it's an honor to be on. Thank you.
Thank
you, man. It means a lot.
It was good to meet you. Get
awesome.
to chat with you a bit.
Yeah, maybe we'll see you out. We're gonna be out in Vegas, so we'll maybe see.
Yeah, come say hi. I'll see you guys.
Woj Lock in the world.
So guys, hopefully you enjoyed that podcast with Chris. Hopefully you got something from it. Again, great grappler. Again, you can check him out again at his website, thegrapplersdiary.com. So thegrapplersdiary.com. If you want to follow Chris, see what he's up to, check out some of his writings, everything else he's got going on. But again, thank you all for being here. Appreciate you. Hopefully you enjoyed it as always. If you guys did enjoy it, you can support the podcast by going to iTunes or whatever podcast app you have. And if it has a rating feature, give us a positive review. You don't think that we've earned that review, or maybe there was something you didn't like about the podcast, you can always send us a message. We take good constructive criticism to heart. Negativity, we have fun with that, but constructive criticism, we like it. So again, if you guys want to do that, you can send us your criticism or your support. We get your support regularly. We appreciate all you guys that take a moment to send an email, to send a DM on Instagram and so forth. But also you can support us by checking out our sponsors. Athletic, ATH. LETHC. If you're watching the thing, you can see the little mint box. They make microdosed THC mints that include a different set of cannabinoids to help with different effects, everything from recovery to getting in the flow state for your training or your work, or even to your hard training sessions. Again, they make these different gummies or mints rather, so that you can get into those states. I've used them. I think the product's good. Do I use them every day? I don't use them every day. I don't use much of anything except for my vitamins and everything else every day. But and now my thyroid medication. I've been taking thyroid medication. Good stuff, by the way.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I was like this. Anyway, it's like
good shit.
Yeah, right. I got more. I feel like I'm like almost like 30 again. Ooh. But no, but again, it's good stuff. If you guys want to check them out, you can go to their website, save 10% on the order, ATHLETHC.com, and use promo code Chewjitsu10 for 10% off at checkout. Also, thanks to our buddies at Epic Roll, epicrollbjj.com. If you want to check them out, go to their website. Use the promo code Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order. They make a ton of good gear and t-shirts and merch if you want to wear something. So again, rash guards, gis, shorts, t-shirts, joggers, whatever. They've got it. Good designs, good quality stuff. epicrollbjj.com. Also, guys, if you want to check out Charlotte's Web, charlottesweb.com is the website. Again, they specialize in CBD products, but they make a lot of other stuff now with functional mushrooms, different balms, a lot of different stuff. If you want to check them out, go to charlottesweb.com. If you've never tried CBD before and you want to try it out, or maybe you've never tried theirs, just try it out for a month. See what it does for you. See what kind of effect you have. A lot of times with certain supplements, which I think to me, the CBD is one of them. It seems like it takes a little bit before you start kind of getting the effects you want. So again, try it out for a month. See what you think. and then make your own decision. But you can go to their website at charlottesweb.com, and the promo code is Jiu-Jitsu30 for 30% off the order. Also, if you want to support the podcast directly, you can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Bunch of different perks, bunch of different additional content. You can get all the details there, patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And last is the word I'm looking for. I was doing the Rolodex of L words. Last but not least is my email. So if you guys want to get my daily email, go to my website at jiujitsu.net/join. And when you join up, you'll get my daily email, which thousands of people read every day. I think somewhere close to 80,000 people have signed up to read the darn thing, which is crazy. You know,
a lot of people, man.
You don't think about
That's
that.
cool.
It's like not when I started today, like in earnest, like 8 years ago. I was like, there's no way, but
That's
crazy.
awesome.
But anyway, that said, with that, you then get an ebook that goes through 12 different strategies on how to structure your open rolling so that you have more focus, more deliberate intent, which gives you more improvement, which makes training more motivating because you have a goal. Lots of different benefits. It's one of the things that most good jiu-jitsu practitioners do at some point. So the sooner you do this, the better. You get that for free at my website, jiujitsu.net/join. So again, appreciate you all for being here. Thank you as always for listening. We'll talk to you next time.